Good morning. We're going to be making pie dough. We are going to use the 3-2-1 formula. The 3-2-1 formula is 3 parts flour, 2 parts fat, 1 part water with salt. 3 parts as in weight. We are not doing this by volume, so do not do 3 cups and 2 cups. That formula will not come out. So for this recipe, we are utilizing 1.5 pounds of flour, preferably unbleached all-purpose. This recipe I am using all-purpose. 1 pound of fat. I'm using a combination of cold shortening and cold unsalted butter. And the water is also cold, and the water amount is 8 ounces. For that recipe, I will be using 1/2 ounce of salt. In a bowl, place your flour, 1.5 pounds, and I'm going to add my butter that I've already chopped in small pieces to make the process go a little bit faster. I think a really great technique, and just didn't think about it today, would be grating cold fat. You're not going to be very successful if you attempt to grate fat that is warm. It's not going to work. It's going to melt in your hands. Right now, I'm cutting the fat into the flour, and that is to shorten the gluten strands. If the fat is warm, it's going to get absorbed into the flour. I'm using a bowl scraper to do this. You could use some forks. You could use a bench scraper, but not inside of your bowl because it will dent in your bowl and also put holes in your bowl. So you would need to do that on a flat surface. If you're using a mixer, you can simply put your flour in and use a paddle attachment. You could also do this process in a food processor, blending the fat into the flour, pulse on, pulse off. You're beginning to see that the flour is coating the fat, and we're going to break this down into very small pieces of fat. So the larger the pieces of fat, the more flaky your dough will be. Right now, it's just a little too large. We're trying to break this down into pea or hazelnut size pieces of fat. So my dough will be relatively flaky. So if I had to make this dough and I needed so many portions of dough, I would simply take the entire yield and divide it by the portions of dough that I need. So for example, a full recipe would be 3 pounds, 2 pounds, 1 pound, 3 pounds of flour, 2 pounds of fat, and 1 of water. And so that equals 6 pounds. And now you could divide that or take that and bring it into ounces. And maybe you're making 8-inch pies, and maybe you will need about 9 ounces of dough per pie. So you can do the math. We'll get back to that. So now you can see that I still have some large pieces of fat. but it's being broken down to about the size that I like before I incorporate my water and salt. So now I'm going to make a well in the center to incorporate my water. My water is very cold. If it's not cold, add ice to your water. If there's no ice available, then you want to place some water in the refrigerator ahead of time. We want the water cold so it does not melt the fat. When the fat gets absorbed into the flour, it becomes very, very pasty. It's difficult to work with. It won't be flaky, and it'll also be tough. I'm going to draw my flour away from the sides towards the center and begin to blend. So slowly, I'm just gradually bringing my flour into this wet mixture. And now I'm beginning to blend it all together. So it's just about together. So now I'm going to turn it out onto the counter where I'll have a little bit more freedom to mix it. Here, contained in the bowl, it's a little hard to manipulate the dough. So now I'm going to take the heel of my hand and give this dough a quick massage to better incorporate the butter. So I can still see lots of visible chunks of butter, and that's okay, but it needs to be just a tad bit more blended in. I'm going to use the heel of my hand to do this. It's the term that we use to blend the fat into a dough is called fraisage. So I'm pulling away from my larger mound back here, and now it's sort of softening up that butter just a tad bit, enough to blend. I'm going to do it one more time. And if I can kind of feel that I still have some chunks. So let's just do it this one more time. And that's much better. Now I could wrap my dough and place it in the refrigerator to relax. Remember, we want the dough, the gluten that's contained in the flour to relax. If you were to attempt to roll the dough out right away, this dough is not going to be very, very cooperative. It's going to show some elasticity. It's going to draw back in and out, and you will not be able to manipulate it into a shape that you would like to see when you make your pies. All right, so this will get wrapped up, it'll rest, and we'll return once the dough is rested.